Lately, what's been on my mind is whether or not paid protesters exist. So instead of just straight up accusing people of being paid protesters, I'm going to give you a little bit of background of my experience protesting. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel about it and how things went for me. Because we all should do our best to try to stay fair and educated about the world and the people around us, whether or not we agree with them. Because at any point you could be wrong or say something that educates somebody else or be educated yourself. And I mean, like, who wants to be dumb on purpose forever? Like I'm very open-minded and always willing to change my mind once new information comes in. It's not like a hassle or a struggle for me. It's easy work. But let's just get to the point. So my history with protests started with the summer of BLM in my little small town. Why? Because that was when the whole George Floyd incident happened. And since then, I've changed my mind about a lot of things surrounding that whole entire case, circumstance, killing, whatever you want to call it. I feel like from my perspective, a lot of people forget that there are other factors at play before the incident actually happened, at least on my algorithm. As far as my algorithm was concerned, there was a lot of just different police overreach, police brutality, and things of the sort occurring, even to white men. There was just a lot of like just general cop interaction videos going around. And the one that like particularly stuck with me was one where it was a white guy in a hotel and he was being given like contradicting orders. He was being told to stay still, but also move forward. And he was on his stomach and then he was reaching down to try to pull up his pants. And then the cop kept saying like, stay still. And I think maybe his partner or he himself, I haven't seen the video in a long time, but it was like, stay still, inch towards me, stay still, inch toward me, don't move, don't move. And then that's when they opened fire on him. And again, I have nothing against cops. Even during the height of all of those things, I would always be somebody who said like, just in the same breath that I would say, not all black people are the same, not all white people are the same, not all cops are the same. And that's not even a race, that's a job. But during this time period, in my feed, there was a lot of rumors about police cities happening. And there was a big conversation about the military industrial complex and the over militarization of the police before the George Floyd thing happened, right? And so I remember I was seeing videos of these police cities being built where they're spending millions of dollars to create these little pocket cities that were supposed to be police training grounds. It was a spending issue and just general government issue for me. Then the George Floyd thing happened. In hindsight, I feel like, part of me feels like that was the distraction to make people think more about the race part of things rather than the issue of the over militarization of the police. Because when that discussion was going on, it was conservatives and liberals on my feed that were talking about it. And it didn't really seem like a huge, weird divide thing. Like everybody was well aware of the culture between the black community and police, as well as a prisoner and prison guard complex that was going on. De-escalation and over militarization. These were the criticisms of the police. So I feel like when the George Floyd thing happened, it was another one of those like, okay, catch them. Distraction things, because people were almost unified in a thinking. It wasn't like a hate for the police, but it was just like, this needs fixed. And so the way I saw that movement, being fully transparent, was I saw it as a valid criticism that was a means to fix it for everybody. And then people brought out the All Lives Matter thing, which I believe was an additional distraction. And I think I understand the sentiment of All Lives Matter. Point blank, period. I understand the sentiment. It was a weird way to engage in the conversation when it wasn't about me and you against each other. It then made it about that. The analogy I usually use is like if you went to a breast cancer awareness parade or whatever fundraiser, and then you started bringing up testicular cancer or all cancers matter, it'd be weird. That's just not what the discussion is. Now, I don't want to lose you on that because that's just a small tidbit to add to my history of protesting, right? So in my small town, it was pretty controlled. It wasn't like the cities where it was like a mix between rioting and protesting. The roads weren't blocked. Traffic would come by. People just had their signs, and the sidewalks were even open. Areas were sectioned off for people to stand, which in my current knowledge of protesting, I'm like, well, that just seems like a steam release valve. You know what I mean? And like how people have criticism of the No Kings things, it almost makes it like a parade. And also, this was around the time where you would see footage of these protests and people were throwing bricks through windows and people were posting videos saying, where'd this pile of bricks come from and things like that. We all had discussions about it, and there was posts and things like that. And everybody was aware that like, yo, if somebody starts doing some weird shit, call them out. First off, that's distracting from what this is supposed to be, and it's just making everybody look bad. And then you have the fact that, are there agent provocateurs in the audience, right? And during that protest, if you were to ask me what my goals or anything like that were, it was just to readdress the immunity problem and have towns look at the funding of their police department and determine whether or not a lot of the gear that was getting spent on the police departments would be better served to put money back into the community, into the city as a whole, whether it's fixing roads, blocks, blah, 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 putting place things for people to do. So how does this tie in? With all of that being my experience, when I then hear people talk about paid protesters, my first thought is like, what? Maybe I didn't fill out the W-2 because y'all are getting paid. But knowing how the world works, I never dismissed the fact that there could be some greedy corporate CEO with his hand up everybody's ass, making people protest and them getting paid for it. But my rationale behind it was, okay, well, maybe people say paid protester and they're talking about the organizations that are kind of funding the protest. And I say that like Flint, Michigan's water again. And it was Liquid Death that was sponsoring the protest and, providing resources. That wouldn't be crazy to me. But after learning about the BLM protesters being supposed communists, making a whole organization, taking their money and doing nothing with it. So I was like, hey, I'm never participating in anything like this again until I do proper research into the organizations involved, the brands involved, and where their roots are. You live and you learn. There tends to be organizations with agendas that are taking advantage of your ideals. So recently I came across this guy named Nate Friedman, and he goes out of his way to expose people that he deems paid protesters. And whether you're a liberal or a conservative, if you found yourself in the situation to have a protest or support a protest, these people could be in your crowd. Because when you're protesting something, you don't just want bodies. You want people that have resolve and willpower, not people that are there collecting a check, just holding up a sign. And if you're protesting, there should be a goal, whether that's big or small. And you need to be able to articulate that and explain it. And it is a reminder of what you're there to do. Because let's say your protest goes well and then people want to speak, people with power. What are you going to do? Be like, oh, I just wanted to put some hope out there. I just wanted to bring awareness to it. Yeah. And then what? And I'm not saying that to be a smartass. I'm just saying if you're trying to recruit my resolve and my willpower and my time of day, you have to be able to articulate exactly what the plan is, what the problem is, because I got bills to pay and shit to do. It has to be more than just feel good rebel energy. And it has to be fair, not just a destruction of the systems at hand, like of the government. In America, protests are typically sanctioned behavior. We have the right to protest. Now, how drastic that protest becomes is, where it becomes lawful or unlawful based on the incitements and things that happen. People are getting these permits for like an hour-long protest. I find it just so odd to just like have a sanctioned amount of time that you're allowed to protest. Because then that just means, the institutions just have to wait out that time and then you're done. And then it's back to the usual. They don't have to listen to you. What is the resolution behind the protest? Anyway, I came across Nate Friedman and I want to share a couple of clips and then let you guys, soak them up and see some of these people and make your own determination. People won't even have the discussions because they label them a troll. Even when they're not asking sarcastic things, they just ask them to elaborate upon their feelings or their beliefs. And then the liberal person or the person in the activity tends to just shut down and be like, I'm not even going to engage. And you feel like it's not my job to educate. Well, it is. If you're out here protesting and you're trying to spread the word, you're trying to spread the word without having a conversation, without talking. What the hell kind of sense does that make? You want to spread the word, but not discuss.
So what brings you out today?
No King's Day.
And why specifically are you out supporting No King's Day?
I think protest is important.
Why are you protesting?
How much time do you have?
A couple minutes. And what's the main reason you're out here protesting President Trump?
I don't agree with a lot of the decisions that are being made.
Is there any decision in particular you disagree with?
So I would start with, I don't even think it's appropriate for me to have this interview.
So this in particular is odd to me. I mean, I get it. People might not be good on camera, and if you ask them things on the spot, they're typically going to fail perhaps, but she had time to think about it. And I feel like it's not just her, but when this is the standard of what happens, it's more than just people being uncomfortable on camera. I feel like it just says that people like the optics of protesting, because I truly don't understand the statement that she says, which is, I don't believe it's appropriate for me to have this interview with you. There's a protest, there's a political atmosphere. Why wouldn't it be appropriate to talk about the protest at the protest? And you'll notice he wasn't rude. I mean, obviously in hindsight, we know he's there for a specific reason, but he wasn't coming off that way. And even if someone is, it's not a grandiose task to ask them to simply explain their point of view.
What did you think of the Trump peace plan that was submitted? What did you think of it?
Honestly, I haven't been paying much attention to it.
Do you think that they should take the deal?
I don't know. I think they should. I don't know.
Then you have this guy. I'm always a proponent for, if you don't know something, you simply say, I don't know, or you admit it, because you can always be educated. But you're at a literal protest for Palestine. Don't you think it's important that if you're going to protest Trump and Palestine, that you understand what bad or good things he's doing? Especially something that's like a peace plan?
Bro, they're paying you $80K a year to protest? Is that wrong? Is that wrong?
General manager of a protest group called the People's Forum. And if you dig through their tax documents, you'll find that gets paid $75,000 a year to protest. Now you're funding this behavior because this is getting arrested at these protests. Now the police do their job, but very quickly he's let out and back on the street to protest.
So as you can see, he finds these individuals, finds out the company that they're working for, and he even went through tax documents. And a lot of his videos tend to be like this. He points out other protests and the company that these other different people have gone through. And this is where it kind of gets into middle ground territory for me, or gray area, because these companies are supposed to be nonprofit. They have employees. Employees still deserve pay, I guess. And so, nonprofit just means the company itself wouldn't be making any money, which again is arguable. It's not unfamiliar that nonprofits are secretly making profit. That's not what I want to focus on though. What kind of trips me up is if these people are activists or work for these activist type companies that are doing something. Let's say you work for a company that plants trees, so you go to a lot of tree protests and a lot of protests that are related to environmental factors, whether it's like air pollution, water pollution, global warming. These are all things that would still fall under that niche. And if you work for a company that does these protests and you get paid as an ambassador for the company, I don't understand where the problem is, I guess I would say. Now, I understand the potential in it because, it's then people getting paid to cause discourse, which can then result in those people stretching the truth in order to get their check. But I don't understand if we want to be labeling these kind of people as like, super paid protesters. I don't know, because at the same time, when people don't know what they're protesting, that's also an issue. And I don't know if those are the ones that are being paid or just people that are misinformed. But yeah, I just want to, kind of touch both sides of things because it's sketchy. But again, if you work for an activist group and there's a protest related to your group, why wouldn't you also go to that protest? Maybe I need somebody to break down the actual nefarious aspect of this, but that's kind of my rationale. I'm not for paid protesters or anything like that. I'm not completely against it, except for if it's like a very obvious, these people don't care about the issue. But the thing that kind of trips me up is that the protests that they do engage in tend to be related. So it's not like they're playing both sides of the field. But again, it's mostly liberal and left-leaning culture that tends to do protesting. So it would make sense that this is mostly the case. There's not really another side of the coin for those people to engage in. Now, with all this information being public, I'm not sure the legality of him exposing these people like this. I'm going to blur their faces and beep their names, but he could definitely just talk about the companies without going in depth and discussing these people. I don't really find that to be tasteful, I guess. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time when we talk about whether or not Trump got rid of the freedom of speech.